Hi, this is Mike Griggs for 3D World magazine. Today I'm going to give you a very quick introduction to Bodypaint 3D for Cinema 4D. So first of all, we need something to paint. So in our content browser, I'm just going to use the, double click that, Stegosaurus. Just going to get rid of the sculpt material because I don't need it, and the texture tag. And as you can see, we've got an object made of 5 objects, which is great. I'm not going to deal with UV maps in this tutorial because we already have 5 UVs already here. But what we're going to do is we're going to switch our layer into the Bodypaint 3D paint mode. And then we are going to use the paint setup wizard to kind of just get ourselves on the right track. It's going to create 5 new materials for our 5 new objects. We'll get it to recalculate the UVs while we're here. I don't want single material mode, which would create 1 material for all 5 objects. And I want to create a color, and I want to create a bump map with a maximum size of 4096 pixels. And we're going to click Finish. And we're going to close that. And then our materials, we've got 5 materials. And you're probably wondering that may look a bit different. That's because it's just a different way of looking at the material list. If we go up to Layer Manager Compact, we can see the 5 textures, well, 10 textures, 1 in the color and 1 in the bump channel that Cinema 4D has made. It's made a whole range of new TIFF files for us, and that's really useful, so we can paint directly onto those. So we're ready to paint, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little pencils, so we can go to our paint tool here, go to our color, create a solid color. Let's choose sort of dinosaur color. Let's do a green. And using the middle mouse button, I'm going to make a nice large brush. I've got a generic brush here. I've got loads of brushes that I can choose from. Brushes, let's do a crayon. Oh, yeah, that one's quite chunky crayon. And just increase the brush size a bit, and let's get painting. Now, the reason that's black is because, just like Photoshop, I have a black material here. So let's increase our brightness. And that's okay. There we go. We are off to the races. And because we have our 5 pencils across, we can also paint across the objects, which is really useful. We could also, and we can see that it's starting to paint, and in fact if we look at our texture view here, let's make sure we've got, this is the body. Yeah, there we go. You can see a very faint UV of the Stegosaurus, and also you can see the green starting to apply there. I could actually paint on this and just wrap across that, and if we go back to our 3D view, you can see that that's worked. Now, if we go back to our materials, and let's just say we only want to do the top spines. Let's just click on there, make sure we've got that all set up, we're ready to go. And I can't paint here, but I can paint on my spines. So look, as hard as I want, I can't paint on there. So that's really useful. The other thing that we can do is, let's just carry on painting. Let's switch our body back on. Yeah, that's all working pretty well. But let's just undo. You can see that I've got some weird things going on there. That's because of the way that the UV maps have been created. If we use projection painting, I can just project, instead of projecting onto the model, if I just switch that off, and you can see that the brush is trying to remain parallel to the surface of the model. If I switch on projection painting, it's just projecting straight down from the camera view. So that can be quite useful if you don't want certain types of tearing or smearing across UV seams, but at the same time be wary, because say for example, if I was to paint here, it stretches it across the back of the leg. Now, lots of things we can do. We can just fill our model, which is really handy, and that's because the reason it's only done half of it is because I had projection painting on. If I do that again, just give it a sec. And a bit more there. Yeah, we now have that done. Okay, so we have discovered that we can quite easily paint, and also say if we wanted a slightly darker element in the shadows, potentially reduce our pressure down, potentially increase our size a bit, slightly darker. Oh, this again, good example of where we want projection painting. Unfortunately, there's no symmetry really within Bodypaint in Bodypaint 3D, but you know, for all the other things, and as it's a part of Cinema 4D anyway, you know, it's fine. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so we've done that, but say if we want to create some bump maps based on that, well, we can just go back into our materials, in our body, just flip that over to the bump map, and just make sure in our channels, our little pencil is now on a bump. And I'm going to just stay with the brush that I've got. Color, don't want that, just want solid color. But because it's a bump map, let's just reduce that size down. Oh, I hit that button again. And yeah, there we go. We're starting to get, let's just increase the black on that. Potentially starting to see bump maps starting to happen. Sorry about that. But it's not spectacular. However, we do have a wide range of swatches that we can start to play with. Let's think of one that would be good. Oh, yeah, there's one. Okay, so we're going to texture paint this. Again, checking my channels. I don't want it in the color, I only want it in the bitmap. And yeah, that's much better. That's great. And that will scale, yeah, as you can see, because I've got projection painting on, that's scaling up and starting to give us a really good scale effect. Now, the brilliant thing, because we're working in effectively layers, if I switch projection painting off, and let's just add, I'm in my body bump, let's just add a new layer. Let's just undo those bumps, actually. Okay. And let's make a brand new layer within here and call this skin bump. And we'll just quickly put some on. In fact, we could just fill that texture and then hopefully, yeah, brilliant. So that's given us scales all over the model and just got a little bit touch-up work to do here where the tolerance hasn't quite matched, but that's absolutely fantastic. Now we've got that skin bump. What we can do is in that texture, in UV mode, just zoom out and go texture selection, select all, edit copy, and in our materials, go to our body image and into our layers, make a new layer, and go paste into selection. And that's, oh, didn't need that. And we'll just call this skin bump. Now, if we go back in here, yeah, that's basically apply black and white. But because this works pretty much exactly like a program like Photoshop, for example, we can start to use those kind of features to start to get the look that we want, and we can knock that back. And yes, this is a layer mask. So just swap that round and we can start to, oh, I'm pretty sure I've left myself, yeah. Just make sure we're in a solid color for that. Layers, skin bump. Yeah, that's, yeah, as you can see, that is starting to work away on the layer mask. And so yeah, you've got so much control in here. Now, let's say you are slightly worried about adding new elements. Say for example, I want to do something with the eye. So let's go to our eye, select our eye, materials, let's select our eye. We're just going to make a new quick layer, and I'm going to select an eye color, which I'll just make sure is white. Materials, colors, make sure painting in the color channel. There we go, white. And let's choose a color for the iris. No idea what color Stegosaurus's eyes are. Let's make it yellow. Choose a slightly better, just choose a simple brush. Okay, so we've got the iris done, and now we will reduce our size even more and give ourselves a pupil. Now, okay, what we haven't done is made that eye shiny by adding a reflectance channel, and so don't panic, we don't need to go back and reset everything. All we need to do is go texture channels. We can create one of the standard ones here, but for reflectance, we're just going to add a default specular, and it even knows what to call it, and the width, etc. is all according to the textures that were applied earlier. We could change that if we wanted, but for the purposes of this tutorial, that's fine. And now you can see layers, background, default specular, and this is just going to be a white or black bitmap. Let's just make sure we are painting on the reflectance. That color, white, make our brush just a little bit bigger. Yep, we're just going to drop that color down to black. Yeah, and that's taken the highlights away. And if we use the white, that's added them. And if we go back into our material for the eyes, we can create a much narrower highlight and increase our specular strength. So we're working with the materials to create something, potentially give it a bit more life. So the other thing that we have here is our bump map. Looks a bit weird, and that is because if we go back and select on our body and in our materials, yeah, what's happening there is in Cinema 4D you can set your text default preview size. So if I go back to another element, it's going to say the same now, because Cinema 4D, as you can see, is designed to help artists of any skill level, and that's why it is one of the most useful 3D applications that there is. So there's a whole bunch more that you can do. You can bring in bespoke textures, but I hope you can see that even just with the standard tool set that you have within Cinema 4D, there's an awful lot that you can do with Bodypaint 3D, and don't necessarily assume that you need to go to a third-party application for your texture work. So this has been Mike Griggs for 3D World, and I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial.